of last year, I got the Section 3 thing. And I remember like being crushed because like I had, just to put this in perspective, I had $250,000 in Amazon between money and inventory. And I had just taken a like $80,000 loan right before it happened, like a month. So that money, that inventory was in Amazon, obviously. So like I was crushed, like demoralized, like depressed, like bad, down bad. And I remember I called, well, my business partner called me and I was driving and I was going to get a McDonald's to make myself feel better. And I pulled over because I knew I was probably going to get emotional about it.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Side Hustle Experiment podcast. The gang is back. If you are old school and did the FBA happy hour, Drew is one of our biggest guests. So we are all back together. Big reunion here. We have FBA Makayla, who went from doing 7 figures on Amazon. Now she has a 7-figure real estate portfolio. So we're going to talk about how she kind of got the profits out of Amazon, invested in real estate. We're going to catch up. So going to be a lot of fun. So thanks for being here.
Wait, thank you guys for having me. It feels like a reunion. Been a
It
while.
is. How's life? How's life?
If you want the exact spreadsheet I have used to sell over $3 million on Amazon, how I track my buys, how I track my best sources, where I put links to my favorite sites. I have a spreadsheet that I've spent the last 2-3 years building. If you want access to it, it is absolutely free. Just go to the free resources section down below this video. 100% free. Now let's get back to the podcast.
Just trying to figure out my path outside of Amazon now, since I officially gave it up. And people don't even know that either. I guess that's not been a secret.
Breaking news.
I mean,
Makayla.
I thought I kind of implied that already, but I guess I had, when I did the Q&A a couple of days ago, I told, somebody asked me about it, and I said, like, I don't miss it. And someone's like, wait, do you not sell anymore? I was like, no.
So did you like completely done? Well, go ahead, John.
So what made you stop or come to this realization?
Honestly, I've been doing real estate full time since like July of last year. So if we all remember the account issues that I had back in May of last year, kind of led up to that. I still sold. My account never got shut down, which is, I would like to clear the air on that because everybody thinks my account got shut down. It did not get shut down. It got Section 3, but at the time we didn't know what Section 3 was. This is when, nobody knew what that meant. I went through the interview process just along with, I think there was like 50 of us in this group chat. And mind you, this is like before anybody knew how to do anything related to Section 3. It was very brand new. Like lawyers didn't even know what to do. So we were all going through it and kind of learning as we went. We went through our interviews, and then some of us just never heard back. I don't know if like our emails just didn't get sent, like we got cleared and like it didn't get sent, or what the case was, but I never heard back. And like 6 months later, I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna start selling more again. That was during close to Christmas time. So I'm like, I'll sell some more stuff for Christmas. And I remember talking to you, like I bought a pallet again, and like I was trying to get back into things again. And then come time for me to have surgery in December, and that's when I started buying more houses. And then by the beginning of the year, I had quite a few that I was working on. So then after the sellers conference, I honestly was like, listen, I can't really do this both at the same time. Like my schedule was just hectic. I ended up having like 6 projects going at one time. So that's like a lot of bandwidth that I was struggling with. So I ended up basically phasing out of it. And the funny thing is, which I think there's only one person that knows this, which is my business partner, Ricky, but they ended up Section 3 me again.
Again?
And I just didn't do the interview. I didn't do the interview. I just didn't go to it because I was like, you know what, F it. Like, I'm not even going to go. So wow. I probably had maybe 200 items in there. So I was just like, you know what, I'm not even going to.
For those who don't know, what is a Section 3?
Section 3 is like the counterfeit, stolen good, like whatever, inauthentic, whatever BS that they're spewing. I saw on Twitter, somebody got one from Amazon stuff. Like Amazon, like Amazon sold them, not like third party, but like Amazon. So I'm like, how does that work?
Yeah, I know that guy. I used to talk to him a decent amount. He was in Arbitrage Ops. Yeah, it's crazy to see that. Did he ever do you know if he got it cleared up?
I don't think he did.
I should probably
Correct me
message
if
him.
I'm wrong, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I think he did like $5 million a year too. That was huge.
Yeah. And I'm like, so what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't really talked to you, I guess, since we did that happy hour, and that was a really long time ago. I stopped selling too, if you probably haven't already
Yeah.
seen it on social media. Yeah, but I didn't get Section 3 to ever. I don't know how. Even now, I'm like missing shipments. Like I don't even care about any of my listings, whatever. Still haven't got it. Like I guess that my account was aged well because I'd had it for so long. Maybe that helps. I don't know, but it seems super unclear. People are.
It was
I
a
see it all
product
the
I
time.
sold a long time ago, and like I think it was from like Kohl's or something. Honestly, it wasn't like I don't know. So like, whatever. I feel like I'm not even going to attend the interview at this point.
Yeah, no, I get it. The one thing I remember talking to you on the happy hour and being like, you're a good example of somebody who said they were going to do OA and wholesale and that type of stuff, and then transition to something else, which is like everybody's pipe dream. And then, you know, what I found funny is when you do that, then everybody's like, oh, well, they quit. I'm like, yeah, man, that's the point. That's like
I don't know how
everybody
many
says.
times I've heard that.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
why
like,
did you quit? Like, I didn't quit. I just did better things.
yeah, it's like you just have higher leverage stuff, especially if you get into something like real estate. I mean, that's like capital heavy, time heavy. You probably have a lot of risk there. You can't be exposed to like too heavily risky things like that without feeling probably super stressed, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, when you're managing, 6 or 7 jobs at a time, like I think about 7 now. And obviously like I told you guys, I raised like over it's probably close to 1.25 million at this point in private money alone. So it's a lot, you got a lot of, just like, scaling Amazon and taking on loans and stuff. Like, obviously I sign promissory notes and everything, and like personally guaranteeing these, like, so like if things go sideways, obviously I'm responsible for that.
Yeah. So how's it set up? Like, and let's talk to me like I am a 4-year-old because I know nothing about real estate. So explain this situation a bit. Like, what made you get into this certain thing you're doing, and then like how's it all set up?
So originally, before I even started Amazon, back when I was going to go to medical school, I knew that I wanted to do real estate at some point, like, because I loved the whole design aspect of it, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And obviously, back whenever I was going to go to medical school, I was going to have a bunch of debt and wasn't going to be able to do it for a while. So like it wasn't obviously in the cards right then. But then when I did Amazon, and then it opened doors for me to meet different kind of people, and obviously a bunch of connections. And my business partner Ricky, he has a lot of real estate, and so I talked to him a bunch about it. And that's when I bought my first one back. It'd be 2 years ago, in December, my first rental property. And then, like I said, with the Section 3 thing, and then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna tell this story because I think there's lessons in these stories that I tell. But so May of last year, I got the Section 3 thing, and I remember like being crushed because, like, I had, just to put this in perspective, I had $250,000 in Amazon between money and inventory. And I had just taken a like $80,000 loan right before it happened, like a month. So that money, that inventory was in Amazon, obviously. So like I was crushed, like demoralized, like depressed, like down bad. And I remember my business partner called me, and I was driving, and I was going to get a McDonald's to make myself feel better. And I pulled over because I knew I was probably going to get emotional about it. So I pulled over into the parking lot of McDonald's, and he was talking to me, and he was telling me stuff, and I'm like, Ricky, you don't understand. I'm like, you don't know how it feels to have like this money like tied up in Amazon, and they're telling me that they may take my money from me and my inventory, and like I've got obviously credit cards, I've got loans, like I've got some, like, but it's not obviously everything because I just took out a loan. And so I was just real bad. And he's like, I start crying, and he's like, Makayla, you gotta like put it together. Like, you gotta stop feeling bad for yourself. I was like, Ricky, you don't understand, like crying. And he's like, Makayla, listen to me. He said, tell me how much money you started with when you started this entire thing. Back whenever I was doing eBay. Well, actually, back when I was doing like Facebook Marketplace selling. And I was like, well, I only had $3,000 to my name. Mind you, I never had a full-time job. I was in school. Like, that was it. Like, that was my entire net worth. It was the $3,000 that I had. I said, start at $3,000. He said, how much did you end up doing on Amazon? I said, well, I did 7 figures my first year, and I made over 6 figures, obviously, in profit. And he's like, there, listen, you did it one time, you can do it again. So like this goes out to anybody who's kind of struggling, even if it's non-Amazon, maybe it's another business. I don't really care. This applies to everything. If you did something once, you can do it again. You just got to grind. So I took that from him, which he didn't realize how big it was. Even to this day, he probably doesn't realize how big that was for me, because then like that day forward, not to be cliche, but like that day forward, I was like, listen, like we've got to, this was like a month, mind you, of me like literally I played Candy Crush and I had Heyday on my phone. That is all I did. It's like the entire month of me waiting for my results, which never did come. But I did that. And then that's whenever I sat down with myself and I was like, listen, like either I go back to school, put myself more in debt. I'll go back to medical school, which I had to reapply. I had to take the MCAT again, all that stuff that I didn't really have to do. Or I do real estate, because that was the only other thing I was interested in. So then I was like, listen, we'll do real estate. I'll full send it. Like balls to the walls. At this point in time, like Amazon, like try to bankrupt me. So I'm like, I'm full sending it. So I took whatever money I had from Amazon. I had just cashed out my house. So thankfully I did have that money, obviously. And then I had obviously other money too. Took that money and then I liquidated my store, took whatever I could out of it. And people were like, oh, Makayla, I think you should probably just sell through it like normal. Like, don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal and everything. And those people got axed and lost all their money. And I'm like, no, I'm going to take it all out. So I ended up taking a major loss, like on a lot of stuff, like significant amount. But I got all that back and I have inventory actually at my house still. My parents were like, what are you going to do with this stuff? I'm like, I don't know. Not sure.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
You do nothing with it ever. That's what I learned.
Yeah, it just sits in the basement. I got like baby soap down there. I'm gonna have to donate to somebody or something. I have no idea. But I just took all that money from there and I started, as of like July that same year, last year, I started looking for houses, and then I stumbled upon a house, that the first flip house that I did, that nice one that I did. And didn't make any money off of it, but you know, it's the moral of the story is you gotta keep trying. So I did that house, and then I did my second rental property, and then from there it kind of just snowballed. And then we got to the end of the year and I was having surgery on my leg, and I told my guys, I'm like, hey, listen, I'm not planning on buying a bunch of houses right now. I'm not interested in being like having a robot leg and trying to manage all these projects and having to babysit people. So I'm like basically like telling them like, maybe you should guys look for like another job temporarily until I get back to my normal self. And I got a call one day and my head guy's like, hey, I know you said you didn't want to buy any more houses, but there's a guy that he's across the street and he's saying that he's got a house for $7,500. And I was like, do tell. Like $7,500. I'm like, yes. And he's like, just come over and look at it. So I ended up making the trip over and we looked at it and ended up buying it. So, and then I bought a couple more after that. And the funny thing is I've bought more houses. I've bought more houses on crutches, in a cast, in a boot, after surgeries, more that period of time than I have not. So
So how are these houses like $7,500? So like, what's the structure? You buy the house for what, and then what's usually the rent go for, and how long does it take to fix it up?
So that one is the crusty, which I posted on Instagram. If anybody wants to go look at this, it was $7,500. The whole spiel behind it was the guy that lived across the street from me. He was friends with the original owner, and now his son actually was the one who owned it. Now he passed it down to him. So I went and checked out, and he was basically, it was bad, like stuff piled at least like a foot high, and like there was poop everywhere up in the bathroom. Like it was bad. There's so much stuff that was bad. But he basically told me that his son inherited the house. He gave it to him and they were living in it. And I guess they just didn't take care of it whatsoever. And it was really bad. It looked like we honestly thought squatters were living in it because that's how bad it was. But then like come to find out, like not even like a few months ago, I found out that it was actually them who caused that problem. It wasn't the squatters, it was them, which I didn't know that because he didn't tell me that. I had a feeling that was probably the case, but like I didn't confirm it until later. But $7,500. He wanted just to get rid of it. Like I said $7,500. He's like, yeah, $7,500. I said, well, as long as there's no like like property taxes that I'm going to have to pay out of pocket or anything. I said, I'll give you $7,500. So he went, that needed an inspection, a boundary inspection done. So I had to bring out a surveyor. And so they did the survey. I forget, I think it was like $1,500. I ended up paying half of it. He paid half of it. And then, no, actually I paid for it all. And then he owed like, basically they walked away with like a couple $100 is what I'll say after the $7,500. I paid him $7,500. He walked away with a couple hundred maximum, just to get rid of it. And so that house, if I would keep it, the original plan was to keep the house because it was like my very first crusty. It has like sentimental value to me because it was the very first house that I did that like kind of, I don't know, like kind of like put me into the, I guess, the really bad houses. And so I wanted to keep it. And if I did keep it, I would rent for like $1,200. But we'll talk about this too. The reason why we're not keeping it is because it's went through 4 contractors. So if you can imagine. Yeah.
Man.
It's been a lot of money.
Whoa.
So I think I'm going to list it for like $159. My realtor said $149. I said no. So we'll take $159 and we'll take a chance on it. I think I'm at like 105, 110 total all in. And then I think my private money, I've paid like close to 15 on it. So I'll be, I mean, if I could sell it for 159, I'll make like 30 off of it, which is not bad, obviously, but for as much headache and the time that I spent into it. And yeah, I had one contractor start on it. Technically, it was my dad. He cleaned it out, which I'm not going to include him in this, but technically started with my dad. He was cleaning it out. He cleaned out the whole thing by himself in like a week. It was crazy. And I rented a 40-yard dumpster. That's how much crap was in this house. Plus I have my own dump trailer. There's a lot of stuff. And then I hired somebody to come in to do the demo work. And then he ended up taking the bid on for the actual project. So he started and we agreed to like, I think it was $40,000 total. And then plus I paid for the materials. And so he fixed it up and we got down to like less than a month left. And I'm like, listen here, like you're not going to get done. And I tried to get out of the contract, but we had a contract and it was pretty ironclad. And I'm like, I can't really just up and leave. So I was like, I've got to give you the opportunity to at least see this out. So he kept working. He's like, no, I'll get it done. I'm bringing in more people, whatever. Tell me what I needed to hear, basically. And so we got, I think it was probably about 3 weeks to the deadline because in the contract, it said March 29th was the deadline for him to be done. And so we were like 3 weeks out. So beginning of March. And he was not even close to being done. So mind you, I couldn't even be around this dude anymore because like he made me so mad because the way he treated me and everything. And I was like, you cannot talk to people like this. So I'm like, I had to have my dad. Like I had to be the little girl, like, Dad, you have to go over there and talk to that man for me because he's just such a mean person. And every single time we had a conversation, it ended up me yelling at him yelling at me crying, me driving off. Like it was just this whole thing. So we finally talked and actually had like a somewhat civil conversation. No, I forgot this big part. No, wait, hold on. Before we had this civil conversation, I went to the job site, mind you, 3 weeks out. Went to the job site. Nobody's there. Everybody's gone. Mind you, he had a crew of like 5 people. No, not a single person. Did not see anybody. I'm like, okay, maybe they took the day off. I don't know. I don't know what happened. Next day comes. I go by through. They're there again. Nobody's there. Like, okay. So then my dad goes in and looks around and all the tools are missing. I'm like, okay. So did they just take off? Like, what's going on? So I called. At the time, he had like a project manager, basically. Some old dude. Very nice guy. Called him. I said, hey, do you know where Chatham's at? And he's like, no. And I'm like, why is he not at my job? I'm like, where is he at? He's like, I don't know. So I'm like, well, we need to figure out where he's at because he owes me money if not. Like he has a contract to fill. So the next day comes.
If you're still listening to the podcast at this point, you are into it and a fan, and we really appreciate that. If you could do us a solid and like, subscribe, and do all that stuff, it really helps the podcast grow. And secondly, if you could tag us on Instagram, just take a picture of what part you are at the podcast. If you like it, tell us what you think about it. Tag me at Side Hustle Experiment, and I will definitely share it. Now let's get back to the podcast.
I called him. I'm like, hey, do we know where he's at? Oh, I got a call from him. He's in jail. Great. Wonderful news. I said, do you know what he's in jail for? Do you know how long he's in jail? Do we know anything? Like, do we know why I said, is his entire crew in jail? Like, are all 5 of them in jail? Are they like sharing a cell or something? He said, no, just Chatham is. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, explain to me why the other guys are not here. He said, oh, it's because he didn't pay them last week. So I paid him last week. Yes, he said, yeah, I know. I said, so where did that money go? He said, I'm not really sure, Makayla, but he's in jail. And I'm like, so is he getting out soon? Do you know? And he's like, well, he actually called me because he wanted me to bail him out. And it was like $7,000 or something. And he said, I told him no, because he hadn't paid me yet either. And I was like, oh, that's great. So basically we went 3 days. I had no idea where he was at. So then I'm like, listen here, we're going to he's done. Like, I'm like, I don't know if he's coming back next year. I don't know if he's coming back next week. I'm like, I can't let this house sit here because the way that my interest works on my loans, it is every day. So like every day that goes by that the job is not done, I'm paying interest for that. So I bring in another crew that was working for me. They start on and everything. He ends up showing up the following week. It was almost 7 full days of him. I had no idea where he was at. He never contacted me, nothing. I called him millions of times. No, it makes sense because he's in jail. So he comes and he gets mad. He's like, why is there another contractor here? I'm like, because you left the job. You abandoned the job. I'm like, I didn't know where you were at. And then I find out you're in jail. I have no idea why you're in jail. Nothing. No clue. I said, and your guys weren't here. He said, that was a personal matter. That had nothing to do with you. I said, it's a personal matter. I understand that. It does have something to do with me because you're supposed to be on my job site. He's like, why didn't you send me my money for last week? I said, you were in jail. He said, yeah, but you're supposed to still send me my money. So you get commissary or something? Like, no. I'm like, you couldn't even receive it. You're in jail. Like, I send it through his, he sends me an invoice and then I pay it through that. So he said, how did you know I didn't have somebody there that was doing it? I'm like, you didn't send me the invoice. How was I supposed to pay for it? So long story short, him and I came to an agreement. He said that he would forfeit $10,000 of the budget if he couldn't get it completed in those 3 weeks. So I was like, cool, fine. He wrote up a new addendum to the contract. I signed it. He signed it. Thought that was it. So we're like a week away from the deadline. And I'm like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way. At this time, there's not even, I'd say maybe like a fourth of the siding is done outside. And it needed siding, soffit, gutters, fascia. The roof still needed to be fixed. Like there was deck, everything still needed to be done. I mean, there's absolutely no way you're getting that done in a week. So the following week, I show up. I gave him his last payment as per the schedule. And I went there, I think it was Wednesday, and then the deadline was like Thursday. I went there Wednesday, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, what's the plan? I said, you're obviously not getting done in a day. I don't care if you bring in 15 million people. We're still not going to get done tomorrow. And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, that's your problem, not my problem. And so long story short, I got mad and we started yelling at each other. And I basically told him, like, either you're going to stay and you're going to forfeit the 10,000 because he didn't think he didn't think he should give me the extra 10,000, even though he signed for that and it was in the contract. He didn't think he should have to give that up. So I said, either give it up and you keep working, or you just walk off now. And like I said, I was even willing to be amicable. I was like, listen, if you just walk off now, don't cause me any issues or anything. I would just eat it and we'll keep moving. I'm not even going to, I won't be petty. I won't try to sue you or anything. he threw a fit about it, told me he was going to put a lien against my house, a work stop order or whatever on my house, and I wasn't going to be able to touch it for 6 months. He told me he was going to take me to court and that his lawyer was blah, 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 all this stuff. So then I just got in my car and I called my lawyer because I had been sued prior to this by a painter who messed up a bunch of my stuff. So I had my lawyer on speed dial, and I had him on the phone, and he was yelling at me, and my lawyer's like, listen, like, you cannot legally do this to her because you are abandoning the job right now. And so, long story short, he didn't end up doing anything. Per the contract, we had to go through mediation, which it's crazy expensive too. It's like $1,000 just to go to mediation. So I sent him paperwork. I sued him for I think it was like $15,000 total for the damages and everything. I sent him paperwork to go through mediation. You have to wait 14 days, I think it was. He didn't answer. Nobody knew where he was at. He couldn't get served. So then we just bypassed mediation, and I took him to real court, and he didn't accept the serve because we couldn't find him. It kept bouncing back. So then finally, I guess in West Virginia, I don't know how it is for every other state, since he's out of West Virginia. I'm not out of West Virginia, but his business is. We sued him, his business, obviously. And so since he didn't accept the letters and anything, we just served the actual West Virginia, their business department, basically. And so the rule basically states that if you send it to them and he doesn't claim it, then you automatically get a default after so many days. So I waited so many days, whatever, and I finally got the default judgment, and got my money. So
where is he at, West Virginia?
He's close to Wheeling.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I was born in West Virginia, so not too far away from there.
Yeah.
One thing, I wonder, how do you, when all this stuff's going on, do you have income coming every month from the rental properties, or how does that work? How are you paying for all this shit, or is it just all off the loan?
I mean, my rentals at the time, I think I only had 2 that were actually occupied, and you only make $200 to $250. Mine, I should say, not everybody. Mine only makes $200 to $250 a month, net cash flow, after all expenses, and I set back certain amounts. So obviously you can't depend on it. So me doing the real estate thing after coming from Amazon, it's hard. Obviously I live at home, so that helps. I don't have many expenses. But if somebody were to do it and just give up and just give everything, their actual cash flow for their living expenses, it's very hard because you're going from a consistent whatever you're making, then you're going to this where your check comes at the end. You have to watch everybody get paid before you, because your contractors get paid before you. Obviously material gets paid before you. Everything basically gets paid before you. So you're at the very bottom of that food chain. So sometimes it really sucks because you're you have to have obviously stuff set aside for this, because if you don't, you may think for example, that house, it was supposed to be a 3-month project. Ended up being, to this day, we are still working on it. It's finally getting listed this weekend, but it's been over 6 months now. So if I was relying on that check basis, is what I'm saying, if I thought I was getting it month 4 or 5, and now I'm getting it probably month 8 by the time I list it and it goes through the selling process and it finally closes, I'm looking at towards the end of the year now that I'm going to see the check again. So people need to realize when you're doing this, this kind of industry, if you don't have a 9-to-5 or steady consistent income, you need to make sure you set aside 6 months at least in reserve for your. And then on top of that, you have, when you take a loan from a private lender, for most people in general, most lenders in general, once you use that money up, it's gone. So now if you partner with people, whatever, that's a different kind of story. But if you're just taking a loan out, so if I went, for example, for this loan, I took an $80,000 loan out on it. So whenever the $80,000 is gone, I have to obviously foot the bill for that. So I had to come out of pocket. I ended up going over $30,000 over budget. So that came out of my own money. So do you see, the problem gets real sticky really fast if you don't have like. That's why I recommend, if you're going to do this, even if you do one project, like make sure you at least have stuff like reserve set aside in the event that something does happen, because you just don't ever, you never know. You may go through one contract, you may go through two, you may end up, needing a roof done when you didn't think so. Maybe your HVAC craps itself in the middle. Like that happened to me. It worked fine until we needed to turn it back on and it died. So I'm like, cool. Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep money aside. This is the moral of that one.
Yeah, it sounds like some tough cash flow stuff. That stuff just sounds scary. How did you like learn about any of this? Like what made you think, or what started it of you doing all this stuff? Like, 'cause to me, I just hear this and I like barely know the terms you're talking about. I don't really understand. Like, how do you learn all this? Did you pay somebody or what?
No, I've never done like an actual mentoring or mentorship or course or anything crazy. No, I learned all of it from Bigger Pockets. There's a forum called Bigger Pockets, which is basically a ginormous like Reddit page essentially, but it's got a bunch of investors, and you got people from all walks of life, and people who are doing short-term rentals, people who are doing long-term rentals, people who are flipping houses, people that are doing like development. So you've got like everything you could possibly need on there. So I use that. And then I got really lucky whenever I was looking for my first house that I bought. I just went through Zillow I saw like a house in the area that I was interested in, and I like just put like a showing in, basically, because I didn't have a realtor at the time. I didn't even know any realtors. So I just went through Zillow, and the guy who called me is actually my agent now, but he actually has experience in investing and everything, and he's got his own portfolio. He doesn't do flipping or anything, but he does have long-term. He buys turnkey, and I always make fun of him for it because he's a turnkey buyer. Because I buy all the really bad ones, and he buys all the really nice ones. But definitely having like a realtor who has knowledge when you're first starting out is really important, because that way that person can kind of help like guide you. Like, hey, Makayla, like this is kind of how I do like my investment properties. Like this is kind of like, because when I first started with him, like I didn't know obviously everything that I know now, and so like he kind of helped guide me a little bit. Like this is kind of what like rents would look like, because I had no idea what rents look like. I didn't even know where to look at to figure out where you find the rents at, because like there's like Renometer or whatever that is like a nationwide thing, but it's more for like a bigger city. So like if you're investing in smaller places, it probably doesn't even have like an average, or the average might not even be accurate because it's based off of the data that they collect. So I didn't even know. I mean, like, where do I post this at? Where, like, what how do I screen tenants? Like, I had nothing. Like, I was just, like I said, I taught myself. So I was just using Bigger Pockets, and obviously you can only learn so much from that place. So I honestly talked to him a lot, and then he got me into, there's a lot of cities have like a local real estate group that's free, like just free for you to come and basically network. So ours is every second Tuesday of every month. So I just went to it yesterday. But there's probably, I mean, total people that come maybe 30 or so, but like on average probably 10 of us who actually go. But it's really nice too, because when you're first starting out, and you can kind of see, because like one of my friends, he does like the Pace Morby stuff. So like he does subject to, he does like novations, he does wholesaling too. Like he does it all. And he has like, I don't know, probably 80 at this point in time. And he started around the same time I did, I think. Or actually, he was a little bit before me. So it's just kind of cool to see other people, and obviously you gain a lot of knowledge from those kind of people. And people always ask me like courses and like mentoring and everything. I'm like, I don't even know who I'd even suggest, because I didn't do one. I kind of just learned, and that's kind of how I started at Amazon too. I mean, I took Miles's after I kind of got my footing, but prior to that, it was just kind of self-taught.
Except for a consultation call with yours truly, Drew,
Yes.
FBA.
Oh yeah, that? I did. Like that one. It was a 1 hour call.
Yeah, 1 hour. I remember that was like how all my consultation stuff went. People get on, they go, I don't know if I know what I'm doing. I'm this. And I'm just like, you're fine. Just most people just need that stuff. It's like a relaxer, because you were like, I feel like I'm just not going fast enough, or I'm not making enough money. I'm like, this is healthy. You're fine. That was a really long, that's probably 3 years ago, 2 years ago, or something like that.
Yeah, I'll be coming up on 3 years, and that'd be the beginning of next year. So yeah, it had been almost 3 years now.
So what's the goal with the real estate empire?
For this year, it was raise $1 million in private money. It was, I'm trying to think, 12 doors, I think it was originally 12 doors, $1 million, $1 million portfolio value. And what else? Build out my marketing for my direct to seller, which I have SMS going now. So I guess that's kind of done. I have obviously more than 12. I've got 18, even with me selling. And no, I have more than 18. I lied. I think it's 19 now. And then obviously I've met the other ones. And then my other one was get rid of my Amazon debt, which is a work in progress.
Oh, you still have it?
Yeah, I'm actually just getting ready to pay off my. I got one more, technically. I'm just kind of dragging it out, to be honest.
So the Amazon took originally.
Yes. Yeah, it was a line of credit. So it was for 2 years. So I just haven't paid it back yet. I've been making more money, obviously, using it. So don't kill me, Marcus.
You rolled that your line of credit into real estate.
I did what I had to do. I know you're not supposed to, but I did. Well, it's coming up. It's coming up in January, so I'm almost done. It's like $2,400 a week, every other week. So I'm gonna pay it off as soon as I sell this house. That's just gonna get paid off.
Nice.
With my other one. I use my other one to pay off the other one. So
maybe I should do that. I think Amazon's offering me like $175,000.
Listen, they put me in a bad spot. I was like, I'm not giving it back. Listen, it was literally, okay, like maybe 4 months, not even 4 months. It might have been 3 months before that whole thing went down. So like, I was like, no. I'm like, no, I'm not giving it back to you that easily. Like I've already paid interest on it, so I'll make it work.
So how did you go about so you literally raised $1 million. So how'd you raise $1 million, and what do you do with the $1 million?
I go on fancy vacations, obviously. No, I'm just joking.
We're gonna see Makayla on TV getting arrested.
You're gonna see me go to jail. No, I'm joking. So basically what happened when I first started my journey, I used cash. So like my very first house, I used cash because at the time I was still doing well on Amazon and everything, and I had that cash flow that I could go and buy a house. So I bought a house. Then I refinanced it, took the money out of that, and I took it and I split it into two because I got back like 98,000. So I took the 98,000, split it basically. It was like a certain percent. It wasn't half, but I put like 75% into one house and then 25% into the other. And I had two, and I took a hard money loan. So a hard money loan is basically like a loan with high interest, and it's like a short-term loan. It's not like 2 years or 8 years. It's 6 to 12, sometimes even 18 months. So you take that, and they will provide you 100% of the renovation. So say, for instance, we'll just talk numbers. Say, for instance, the house is $100,000, and you're putting $50,000 into the reno. They will lend you the $50,000 for the renovation, and then they will lend you possibly the full, depending on what your experience level is and what the LTV is of the loan. A lot of people don't like to go over 75% just because of, obviously, if they have to foreclose on it, there's costs with that, and then them taking it over, and then whatever they decide to do with it, sell it or whatever. So say, for instance, mine, I think it was, I had to put down 25%. So like say 75 is what you'd have to, 75 is what they'd pay. So 75 and 50. So you would come to the table with the remainder. So that allows you to at least, so this is different than like a conventional loan. So like if you just go and get like an FHA loan, for example, or just through a regular bank or like a credit union, they would just lend you the less than $100,000. It depends on, like I said, it could be 10% down, it could be 15%, it could be 20%, just depends on what loan. And it can even be lower for like FHA, it could be like 3%. So you put that percentage down, and they will not lend on like the actual renovation. They'll just lend on the purchase. So like if you go in there and they'll be like, just for example, $100,000, they'll be like, okay, Makayla, we're going to lend you 80%, 80,000. You have to bring 20,000 plus closing costs and everything to the table. I'm like, cool. Well, this one, I actually came to the table. Obviously it cost me more because they're going to cover all of it. And I had to put down more, 25% plus the closing costs, and then all their fees. They've got like origination fees, appraisal fees. They got fees of having fees. Like there's all kinds of fees. So I ended up putting down, I think it was close to like 25%, but they lend almost, they obviously all of the 50,000 plus some of that. So that way people can renovate their houses and not come out of pocket. Now, if I do it regular, I have to come out of pocket for obviously the down payment plus the renovation. So you're talking like $70,000 you'd be putting of your own money into it, versus I only put, for that house that I did, I think it was only like $25,000 total that I had. If I didn't, it would be like close to 50 out of pocket. So I saved myself. But obviously there's pros and cons to these loans, because you're talking about a 30-year versus a 6-month to 12-month to 18. And the interest on that was like, I think 11.5%. Yeah, 11.5% versus whatever the national average is right now, which back then I think it was like 8% or 7%. So no, it was definitely 8. It was 8%. So I did those for those two ones. So I did those, did it just like a normal, like you would with a regular loan, obviously, but the renovation costs into it. And then after I sold those, I met my business partner, introduced me to somebody, and he ended up giving me private money. So private money is different. So when people talk about private money versus a hard money loan, these are two different things. People think that private money and hard money are the same thing. It's not. So if somebody ever says like hard money, that's an actual loan through like either like, typically it's like a bunch of investors. So they'll pool a bunch of money together from a bunch of investors, and they'll have this fund basically, and that's where they get the money from. But like a private money loan is an individual, like they're outside of a bank or any kind of, it's just like a person to person relationship. So like with mine, he lives in California. He's done everything that I've done, and has done a lot longer. He used to flip houses. He didn't keep any of his houses. He wasn't interested in being a landlord, but he flipped houses out in California, made a bunch of money. Decided it was too much of a headache because he had issues with the contractor, just like I do, and decided to start lending money to other people for a guaranteed return. So like he knows that if it's a 6-month loan too, so 6 months, it's 15% APR. So he knows what he's making. It ended up being like for the $80,000 house that I told you about, the Krusty, it was $1,000 a month interest only payment. So you only pay interest only for now. Like that's all you pay. And then when you go to the closing table, so the way that works, if you sell it or you refinance it, you go back to the closing table and he provides a payoff statement. So he said like it was like $81,750 is what I would pay off. If I'd sell the house right now, that's what I'd pay off. So he'd get all that back. And then plus the interest that I gave him over the last, it'd be 7 months now. So he gets all that back. So he got a good chunk back. Or they either do APR, which is obviously beneficial for me because if I get it done quicker, then I pay less. My other type of private lender that I do is a flat percentage. So like they'll be like, how long do you need one for? And I'll say, I'll need one for like 5 months. And they'll be like, okay, like that's 16%. So they get 16% flat. So like they make 16%, done deal. Like doesn't matter if you use the loan for 3 weeks, they still make the 16%. But now I'm kind of doing a sliding scale because it benefits me obviously, because if I get it done, so it's just a set 6 months regardless, 6-month loan. And if I get it done between 0 and 3 months, it's like 12%. If I get it done like between 4 and 5, it's 15%. If it's between 5 and 6, it's like 17% or whatever. Just making up random numbers. I don't even know what it is. Obviously, the faster I get it done, the less that I have to pay out. And then it makes them happy too, because if they get their money back faster, they're not making as much money, obviously, but then they can roll it over into another loan with me for another house, because I've always got houses kind of brewing, so they can just put their money back into it. But I met my first one through my business partner, Ricky. He was like, hey, like this guy, he does real estate. I wasn't even like trying to like, get him to lend me money or anything. Like I was just genuinely having a conversation with him. And that's how a lot of relationships start. It's not like you don't go around and say, hey, John, I need money. Like don't do that. Like just have a conversation with him. I was asking about how he did his thing. And like, we just talked about it. He was trying to get into Amazon actually. And that's how we originally got paired together because he had questions about Amazon because his account got shut down. And so we talked about that. He talked about real estate, and he was telling me that he does lend money. I didn't even ask. Like, he said, yeah, I lend money now and stuff. And all I was like, well, listen, like, if I bring a deal to you, like, would you be interested in, possibly investing out here in Ohio with me? He's like, yeah, just send me the details. And like, it was like kind of like a cat and mouse game there for a while because I'm like trying to like show him like, hey, like he was on vacation, like it just wasn't clicking. But then finally I'm like, listen, like I got on a call with him, like, listen, like I'm really serious about this. I understand that you don't know me. You just know me because of my business partner, but like I'm willing to do whatever, like to show you that like what I'm trying to do is real. Like I'm not going to run off with your money, because he has had to foreclose on houses like that. That is, it's not like an uncommon thing. Like he actually has went through it. So I finally showed him, and he did a lot of research on the area and like what the market looked like. And I took pictures for him, like the whole 9 yards. I did everything that I could, like that I would personally, if I was investing, like what I would want. So it made him feel comfortable. And so he has his documents. He makes them himself. Some people do, some people don't. But he has all of his creative, because like I said, he'd been doing this for a while. And I signed like a promissory note, and obviously I signed like basically a mortgage basically between him and I. And then I personally guarantee it, because if not, then I could just bankrupt my business and be like, bye. Because people do that. That is a real thing. So that's kind of how that one worked. And then I found my other lender, who's technically what's called a connector. So like if anybody knows anything about Pace Morby, that's hopefully watch this. There's roles basically in the Pace Morby program, which Pace Morby does a bunch of like subject to agreements and novations and seller financing and a bunch of just non-normal financing for houses. Like he doesn't do like traditional kind of loans. He kind of goes outside of the box. But there's something what's called like a connector, and I actually met my connector through my friend who lives here, who is in the Pace Morby program. And so he got me connected with him, and he's connected with a bunch of people who want to lend money. So I just pay him a fee basically for him to find me people to lend to. And so that's what I've been doing.
So what's your accounting situation look like?
It's a mess.
Yeah. Do you have the same accountant as before? Do you have to hire a new one that specifies in this type of stuff?
No. So my accountant actually does it all. Like he's got people who own regular businesses, Amazon businesses, real estate, whatever. Yeah, it's very important when you start doing stuff like this, because like when I first talked to him, I'm like, hey, how do I set this all up? And I still, to this day, I think there's some work to be done for next year, because I wasn't anticipating, like I said, I wasn't anticipating on this all being as big as it is now. So like my books, like if you just spend a day in my life, maybe I should just do like a day in a life thing with me, and like so you can see how hectic it is. Like I'm not even gonna try to pretend like I'm organized, because like I mean honestly, this is how sad my organization is. I had this notebook here, okay? This notebook, and I write stuff. Like I've got final lists for houses, because like if I don't, I'll lose it. Like I draw out like where everybody's gonna go. Like it's not organized whatsoever. But I did hire somebody recently, like a VA 2 weeks ago, I think it is. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. And he is actually helping me, because with all the houses and everything, you have tons of invoices. Like we do, I think I've done over $110,000 in purchases at Lowe's alone this year. So that's a lot of transactions. That's a lot of transactions. I'm going back to lunch with my pro member guy on Tuesday, because they're going to switch my account to be managed or something. I have no idea. All I know is I get free money at the end of the year because I get a rebate. So I'm like, cool, I don't really care. But it obviously becomes a big issue because you've got so many receipts. But thankfully on Lowe's, you can actually track your invoices based on jobs too. So I can just have them label it as a PO. And if not, then I go back in, and every house has like a nickname, because I own so many in the same area that like sometimes we have two on the same street. So then Like one was called Bruce's house because a guy named Bruce used to own it. And then the other one's called the Krusty XL because it's $5,500 is how much I paid for it. So it's very crusty.
Well,
So yeah, I
John?
guess you have to have obviously some kind of organization, because if not, then, but at least my VA now, he's managing my SMS campaign. So he got me like a CRM and everything. And I'm like, I don't even know what any of this is, but he's got it all handled for me. And he's tracking, like I've got an Excel sheet basically of like each job. And then we go in there and we put all the invoices in, and like we figure out how much is spent to date, and like you can figure out like how much you paid in materials and how much you paid in labor and how much your budget is and like how much you got left. Like, so that's about it. Other than that, there's no organization.
That's intense. John, you got anything else?
I was gonna say it sounds really intense. Damn. Yeah, it seems like pretty crazy. Like I think it would be like hard to allocate. Yeah, probably like keep track of everything you have like spending for each house since you're just constantly buying stuff.
It gets
Is
complicated
there any?
because you got different people too. You got different. I got employee cards, for each contractor, but then I've got multiple cards. Like I don't know, I've like one American Express card. Like I've got like a gold card, I've got a plum, like from reselling and stuff. And I've got all of those still. And then I've got like a Chase Premier card. So like that's not just like one card. So like we gotta track like 5 different cards, because depending on whatever they may need to use this card because it's got a higher limit on it or whatever, or my vendor doesn't take American Express, so then we got to use the Chase card. So like it can be complicated. And then I obviously have some houses that are with partners, so like that is that's not the same as my stuff. So like I've got houses obviously for myself, and then I've only got a few now with some partners, but then that's a different accounting system too. So
Wow. Do you think real estate's more complicated than running an Amazon business?
I mean, they're 2 different businesses, obviously. It just, I think it depends on what your skill set is and what you want out of it and what you're willing to risk, I guess. I mean, I think in the long scheme of things, I think running an Amazon store can be more complicated just because of, like, obviously, like Amazon Lit, for example, his way more complicated than mine, like way more complicated than mine. But if I would compare like my 7-figure Amazon business versus my second 7-figure real estate business in terms of complexity, I mean, it kind of depends on which type of complexity. Like managing and keeping, like when I had my VA team, it was obviously easier to manage them. Obviously, way easier. Managing like United States employees, like people who live in the US. Like I've got 15, I think, people that work for me now, or actually I think it's more than that. See, like I'm saying, like I it's just so much sometimes, but it's obviously a lot more complicated, and keeping like the systems for that is more complicated, like payroll and like, because I have to figure this out. So if anybody in here does like payroll for like employees in like the contractor field, let me know what your payroll is, like what kind of software you use, because right now I was just using like check, obviously, but like I don't want to have to drop a check off every time, because that just, it takes time out of my own day. Like I'm already there enough. And most Fridays I don't spend on the job. I try to do other things to like, for like bookkeeping, and I do marketing and everything. And so I don't want to drop a check off. So then we used Cash App. So we used Cash App because all my guys had Cash App. So we used Cash App, and then Cash App must have thought I was like money laundering or something, because they took my limit of like $15,000 a week and cut it to $12,000 a month.
Damn.
I was like, one crew, I'm probably at over 15,000. I think I spent over $15,000 a week in payroll. So the $12,000 ain't even gonna put a dent in it. So I'm like, okay, let me try. I was going to start Zelling, because I'm like, listen, I can just Zelle you and it'll go into your bank account. You can just disperse it to Cash App or whatever. I don't really care. And then I looked, and it's like $7,500 a month.
Wow.
What is that going to do for me? So then I did PayPal. So we'll see. PayPal's okay for right now, knock on wood. But that's probably going to die here real fast too.
Yeah, PayPal's notorious for holding money, so be careful there.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, I need to find another
softwares
way.
that do it.
Yeah, but then I'm like, I've got people who aren't tech knowledgeable, and they'd be like, because there's some people I had to pay for check, like my dad, for example. He doesn't know how to use PayPal. I don't even know if he knows what PayPal is, but I just give him a check. I just give him a check. So yeah, I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. It becomes a hassle when you get too many employees, but if anybody knows one that works real well, I would take that. I'd take the advice in the DMs.
Sweet.
All
right.
Any knowledge you want to leave the guests about going from Amazon to real estate?
I say don't be afraid of people, what they say, because I think a lot of people, like you said, I think people, whenever you do other things, people just equate that to you quitting. And it's not that you quit, because it's not necessarily about quitting. You know, if you find a better opportunity, which I've met plenty of other people in the Amazon space that have found better opportunities, and maybe that opportunity isn't the right one for you, but for the one for them, that is what was best for them. So don't always just equate somebody doing something different as they just gave up, because that's not the case for most of the time. Sometimes it is true. So don't let that, because I know back when I was quitting, like people were like, oh, why are you giving up on this? Why are you doing this? You're doing so well, whatever. And I'm like, it just isn't for me. Like when I went through that whole period of time where I thought I was going to lose everything, like obviously I wasn't really interested in selling anymore. Like it was kind of done. Like I would do it at a small scale, obviously. And I just want to preface this by saying that, like, I am grateful for whatever Amazon has given me. Like, I've met amazing people. I've made more money than I ever had in my entire life, just in like 1 year. Like I can't knock Amazon for that. I don't agree with a lot of things that Amazon does. But I think it's still a great opportunity for a lot of people. I mean, if you're just be careful with what you're doing. Obviously, don't get too crazy. But I think that's my main thing, is like, don't be afraid to switch gears, because sometimes the grass isn't always green on the other side, but sometimes it is, you know, and you don't know that until you try. And I wouldn't recommend just like full-fledged, like just like I did. I kind of did that real. I probably shouldn't, which I had a conversation today with my contractor. He's like, yeah, you kind of jumped into it. Like you just full said it. I'm like, yeah, I did. I really did though. But you know, you don't have to do that, obviously. So I'd recommend going slowly and, you know, keeping your cash flow so you don't live off of, I think I spent maybe like a couple $100 every month. That's how down bad that but you know, I chose that life. You don't have to do it like that though.
That's how I did it. It's working out fine too. So maybe we're on the right
path.
Sometimes,
you know what? You got to do what you got to do. And that's what I always say. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And it worked out for you. It worked out for me for the most part, I guess. I mean, I guess we didn't turn out too bad, leaving the Amazon world, but.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like putting your back against the wall. You know, if you try to stay 1 foot in, 1 foot out, like I was making like probably like 8 to 12 grand a month every month, barely even doing anything on Amazon. But it's like, do I really need that, or how much time and stress is that going to suck? Like probably a lot. And if I just put my back against the wall and do something different, like I'm forced to learn it. I'm forced to stick through with my decision instead of just quit whenever things get hard. Because if you just, you know, both things going on, as soon as one bad thing happened, you could be like, you know, whatever, I'm not expanding this thing. Yeah.
I think that I believe that's true. I think that if you're in a situation where you have to make it work, or you have to revert back to something that you don't want to have to do, I don't know. I think it's like a different story.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think people don't understand that as much. I think you acting out of a place of uncomfortability is probably a lot better than you just being comfortable, because people just don't do anything when they're comfortable. It's like, wow, it's so hard to start a side hustle or whatever. It's like, well, my 9 to 5 job is so comfy. It pays me whatever. Yeah, putting your back against the wall is always going to help. But
yeah, definitely. Where can people find you?
It's still FBA Makayla. I haven't changed it yet. Everybody's telling me to change it. I don't know. I think I have like a sentimental value to it. I'm here.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if that's how you get like your start or whatever,
That's how I started.
You know.
I mean, that's part of me, and it's always going to be a part of me. No matter what I do in life, it's always going to be a part of me. And like, maybe I do need to change it, but it's going to take me a while. I tried to, literally. I was on the page where you change the username, and I typed it, and I was like, I looked at it, and I was like, delete. I'm like, I'll just hang on to it for a little bit longer. But now I'm on Instagram and Twitter occasionally. More Instagram. I've like fell off the face of the earth, as people say, but I've just been grinding. Like Drew, like he's been offline for a little bit. He's coming back online. I'm trying to get back online, but sometimes it's just nice to.
Yeah, your audience never wants to like I feel like this, at least a lot of the audience doesn't want to hear like what you have to say about random stuff, because they're there for like a specific thing. Like I don't follow people that I'm not like, why would I follow like a drop shipping guy? Like I don't care. So that's kind of how I look at it. Even though I did change my Instagram name.
You just got to rebrand.
Yeah, well, I mean, whenever you decide to actually rebrand, you change your name then. I changed my Instagram because I thought, I was like, I'm going to go hard on socials. And then I was like, I don't really want to do it. But I kept the Twitter. I get residual followers from podcasts I've been on and stuff. Like in the past, so if people look up your name, they look up podcasts, they'll like follow you like residually over time. So I wouldn't change it until you absolutely are sure, like whatever you're going to do.
Okay, I just gotta commit to it. And it's just, it takes a little time.
It's hard. Like you had to like kind of talk about something you're not like almost doing, or like make this like the changes and like kind of talk about the new thing sometimes. But I feel like you're so into it. Like if you just kind of posted, you were doing a lot of it at one point. I feel like you were posting a lot in your stories about like the houses and like stuff like that.
I was. You know how hard it is sometimes. If I had like a GoPro tape to me or something, maybe that'd make my life a lot easier. But it's just like I'm like today. One minute I was in one town helping one of the new guys start on the Krusty XL, which I'm going to talk about hopefully maybe next week or something. Maybe I'll make a post next week or maybe this weekend. But I was helping him, and then I went to my main crew at the Krusty, which we're trying to get that house on the market this weekend. And then I went to mow yards at another city. So like I was just all over the place. And then I went back. I went to where I live and was working on the apartments there because they're helping me. So like, yeah, it just sometimes it's a lot. It's not just like whenever you sell on Amazon and you just have like your warehouse and you're just like there. It's like my warehouse is everywhere. Like it's not just in one location. So I need to get back on it. That people seem to like it.
Yep. All right, John, close us out. I don't know what you say at the end of these podcasts. I forget.
All right. It's usually thanks for being here. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and we will see you on the next episode.
Peace.